Charlie Sheen just settled a lawsuit for $120,000 after his ex-girlfriend claimed he exposed her to HIV. This is pretty crazy and explains a lot about why the famous actor hasn't been particularly active since the end of some of his previous media appearances. With that being said, the implications of this could be massive and might even lead to some issues with his new TV series Ramble On. So what's the story? Did Charlie Sheen really settle his lawsuit for $120,000? What's the news about the other women he's dated and potentially exposed to HIV? And is his new show, Ramble On, in any sort of trouble? Well, let's get right into it. Here's what you need to know so far. Charlie Sheen is currently being sued by his ex-girlfriend. The details of the suit are confidential, but it seems that he's been accused of exposing her to HIV and possibly infecting her with the virus. Admittedly, all this information is pretty under wraps, but it's not exactly a secret that Charlie Sheen is HIV positive. He famously revealed his status in an interview in 2015 and claimed at that point in time that he'd been HIV positive for over 4 years. Pretty shocking news. Okay, so what does this have to do with his new TV show, Ramble On? Well, it's pretty simple. If Charlie Sheen is HIV positive, and if he lied to multiple women before having unprotected sex with them, then he's probably going to have a tough time on set with his new show. With social media and justice being what they are today, chances are that there's going to be some sort of social media backlash if this news gets out. And spoiler alert, it got out. Because of this, there's no surprise if his show Ramble On is canceled as a result of all this information coming to light. After all, if Charlie Sheen is infecting women with HIV and then lying about his status before engaging in sexual relations with them, that's pretty messed up. So what can we expect moving forward? The truth is, we don't know for sure, but it seems pretty likely that there's going to be some sort of social media backlash and general public outcry if this news gets out, which it already has. It's possible that a few women might come forward with similar stories about Charlie Sheen exposing them to HIV and then lying about his status before having sex with them. And if that happens, well, Charlie Sheen is looking at more lawsuits coming in his direction, something that he probably doesn't want. Think about it. All these lawsuits are going to come out and he's going to have to settle them all. It's going to be a huge financial burden on him and might even lead to him being dropped from his new show, Ramble On. For those looking to follow this show, which closely follows the life of celebs that are looking to reinvent their careers, it's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds as well as the future of Charlie Sheen's career. As of now, there's no telling what's going to happen with Charlie Sheen or his new show, Ramble On. With that being said, this lawsuit might just be the least of his problems. Wait a second, tell me about that lawsuit. Well, a California woman who's currently only identified by the name Jane Doe just received a settlement from Charlie Sheen for $120,000. She filed the lawsuit in 2017, and while court documents only described him as a confidential male defendant, it's pretty clear that she was suing him for allegedly exposing her to HIV and potentially infecting her with the virus. The woman claimed that after she met Sheen, they had sex multiple times and eventually had unprotected intercourse. The suit also claims that Sheen told her to take 2 pills to prevent transmission of HIV and told her not to believe the convenient rumors of the medical community. Well, seems like he messed up big time, because the medical community is pretty clear about the importance of disclosing your HIV status before engaging in sexual relations with someone, especially unprotected sex. I mean, come on, Charlie Sheen, you're better than that. It's really disappointing to see something like this unfold. After all, he's an amazing actor with a lot of talent. But at the end of the day, if he's lying to women about his status and exposing them to HIV, well, that's a pretty big deal. And going back to his lawsuit, it definitely seems like the law isn't in favor of Charlie Sheen. Wait, what about the other women? Yeah, sadly, there have been other women that come forward with similar stories about Sheen exposing them to HIV and then lying about his status before having unprotected sex with them. It's a pretty big deal, and something that's going to come back to bite him if it hasn't already. Following his appearance on the Today Show in 2015, multiple women who dated Sheen have come forward to say that he didn't tell them about his HIV positive status before engaging in sexual activity with them. This is obviously a massive deal, and something which could definitely lead to a social media backlash and some really negative publicity for Charlie Sheen. Didn't his former former fiancée sue him. Yeah, actually, she did. In 2015, Scottine Ross, who was Sheen's fiancée at the time, filed a suit against him. She claimed that he didn't disclose his HIV-positive status before having unprotected sex with her and exposing her to the virus. Yikes! In fact, it was reported in the following year that Sheen didn't tell 25 sexual partners that he had HIV, despite his claims that he'd never do that to anyone. As you can probably imagine, these women are pretty upset, and they have every right to be. But at the end of the day, the law is the law, and if Sheen violated it, then he's going to have to face the consequences, which might even include losing his new show, Ramble On. What do you think? Will Charlie Sheen's new show, Ramble On, be canceled due to all this drama? It's definitely quite possible, as we've seen shows canceled for far less. With that being said, did you know that we recently saw Charlie Sheen wearing his black Ramble On baseball cap? He was recently photographed in Los Angeles wearing the cap, and it looks like he's doing just fine. He seems happy, but we'll see if that changes after all this news about his lawsuit really starts circulating. After all, if he's infected women with HIV and then lying about his status before having sex with them, then there will be some backlash. Actors getting caught in scandals is one thing, but this is a scandal that definitely has some consequences. Exposing women to an STD isn't something you can do lightly, and it's very clear that social media isn't too keen about letting Charlie Sheen get away with this. Isn't Charlie Sheen in some hot water over his daughter's OnlyFans too? Apparently so. Sammy Sheen, the oldest daughter of Charlie Sheen, revealed that her father wasn't too happy when he found out that she was making money off of OnlyFans. She mentioned in an interview that, "I'm super grateful. I have a supportive mom on my side," continuing on by mentioning that Charlie Sheen hasn't particularly come around on the idea. Not too much. While OnlyFans is definitely a controversial platform, it seems like Sheen is just trying to make some extra cash, the same as anyone else. I'm sure Charlie Sheen will come around eventually, especially considering all the hot water he's in right now for being overly sexual with women and not disclosing his HIV status before engaging in unprotected sex. Think about it. It's very clear that Charlie Sheen isn't the best role model when it comes to sex and relationships. So with that being said, I'm sure Charlie Sheen will come around eventually and support his daughter's new venture. And speaking of OnlyFans, did you know that there have been some serious issues with the platform as of late? Apparently so. With some users getting sacked from their jobs for having an account on the platform, it seems like things are really starting to heat up when it comes to OnlyFans. In fact, a recent article mentioned the fact that a teacher who's been sacked for having an account claimed that her boss encouraged her to set it up and lie about it. This issue just goes to show that as much as Charlie Sheen might not be a good role model when it comes to sex and relationships, he's not the only one in hot water over their involvement with OnlyFans. Charlie Sheen's daughter is far from alone in this particular situation. That's it for this video though. What do you think? Is Charlie Sheen's new show, Ramble On, in trouble? Do you think he's going to have to face some serious backlash if more women come forward with similar stories about him exposing them to HIV? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. We want to know all the juicy details, so give us your opinion on this whole fiasco. It's sure to just get better as time goes on, and there's really no way of telling what new allegations are going to drop. But what are your thoughts?